Sherry in the modern world. You can call me whatever. Most people call me Chi Chi, so that works as well. First of all, thank you to Helgi and to Miki, who just finally got his sorry ass here, for inviting me out. Just to give you a little bit of background, we've been talking about kind of doing this yoga for fighters thing for a while. I taught a class at Black Oak Lodge that seemed to go over well, so here I am. So, hey. So a couple of things. I first have to tell you that I am not a certified yoga instructor. I have been practicing for 8-ish years, I think, something like that. So I have been around enough that I know the poses that we're going to be going through. I've had a lot of experience with them, so there may be questions. Please ask them. If I don't know the answer, I will find it for you.
Okay, you said the Holiday Express.
Yeah. Basically, kind of what we were thinking about doing, because I know you guys are working a lot on balance and footwork. Today we're going to focus a lot on the things that are going to help you with that balance. So specifically core, hips, and then also balance activities. So those are going to be the poses that we're going to do most. We're going to surround those things mostly. We are going to do some other stretches and things that will help with shoulders, your back, specifically for range of motion twisting. And then it's also just good for back healthy. So, sure, we're going to get started. It's not going to be a flow if you've ever been to a yoga class. We're not doing a full flow class. I'm going to kind of just move from one pose to the next and abbreviate things in between. So if you want, at the end, I can show you a full sun salutation. I highly recommend it for if you were going into a tournament or a war or something. It's a really, really good warm-up for you. Just to do a couple of cycles of a sun salutation, because it will warm your body, it will warm your muscles, and it will stretch everything from head to toe. So, let's get started. We're going to take a seat. And I have a list, so I am going to do my best to stay on topic and keep us here for probably about 40 to 45 minutes, and then that way you guys can whatever is best for you guys. If you can't hear or want to be over here, I'm whatever. I'm here.
I got lost. No, just mentioned yoga.
My mat is faced this way because I figured that I can show you the pose in multiple directions, so that might be more beneficial. So that's why my mat is set up this way, and because grass does not like me, so I need to have something in between me and the grass. So we're just going to get started taking a seat. One of the important things that will help you with your fighting as well as in yoga is always keeping your core engaged. So you always want really good, tight, strong abs. So we're just going to get started with a couple basic warm-ups and a couple of really deep breaths. So breathe in, keeping your back straight. Look up to your hands and down. One more time. We're just going to do a really quick hip stretch to kind of open our hips up a little bit. So in your same cross-legged position, however you're most comfortable, if you want one leg on top, in front, if this isn't comfortable, you can also be on your knees if that works too. So we're just going to reach out in front and walk your hands out as far in front as you can. Come on, Timothy.
Yeah, must be better like that. I've been working on the foot. Oh, you have? I lost last time.
And anytime you're stretching, you want to go to the point of resistance and stop there. Take deep breaths, and then if you feel comfortable, then move a little bit further. You never want pain, you just want resistance. Walk back in. And now if you have your legs crossed, change the cross of your leg, putting the other one in front. And we're going to do the same thing again. So having a different leg in front is going to stretch the other hip. For instance, my left leg is in front, so I feel a good stretch on the outside of my left hip. If your right leg is in front, you'll feel it on the right. And come back forward. The next brief warm-up we're going to do is just to warm up our spines. So we want to come onto our hands and knees. Wrists directly underneath your shoulders, knees directly underneath your hips. And this is called cat-cow. So what we want to do is on our inhale, we're going to stretch forward, pushing your chest forward and your gaze up. back to a neutral spine. The next pose I'm going to show you is again from your hands and knees. It's called thread the needle, and this is really good for your shoulders. I will let you know I'm getting over a pinched nerve in my neck, so I may have to be a little bit careful on my left-hand side, so in case you see me doing something weird, that's why. Always listen to your body and take care of yourself. So let's start with our right side. So we want to lift our right arm out to the side, and we're going to scoop it underneath, head to the ground, and with your left arm reach forward above your head. So your head should be underneath your armpit, looking towards the sky.
Is your hand on the hand that's on the ground, is your hand palm down?
Palm down. If you want to take this a little bit further, you can take your left hand, reach it towards the sky, and then drop it back behind your hip, behind your back. Getting a really good twist in your spine, and you should feel a good stretch in your shoulders. If you have your left hand wrapped behind, reach it back up, back to the top of your mat, and come back up to all fours. So we'll do it to the other side. Is everybody okay? Have questions? It's kind of what feels good to you. I think you're mostly looking for a back rotation, but your hips are going to track with that a bit. All right, so left hand out, scoop it under, and I'm not going to be able to talk if you guys hear me, so I'm going to turn this way. Down, and if you want to take the wrap and take your left arm up and drop it back behind your back. You always want to be breathing for your practice. You have your arm wrapped, release it back to the top of your mat. And on your own pace, come back to all fours. Does your back feel open? That's also really good. Most women and people actually hold a lot of tension in their upper shoulders, especially if you spend a lot of time keyboards. So that one is a really good one too. I'm sorry?
Your what?
Your practice. Sorry.
Okay. I heard practice and I was
Or that too. That works. Yeah. Let me take a really quick. Okay, so we're going to do some ab work before we get started into the balance because that always helps us with balance. So we're going to start with boat. So you just want to sit on your bum. If you're like me, you can draw the fleshy bits away from your tailbone. That's a nice way to say that I have a big butt. So you can draw that away. I'm on a bit of an incline.
Does it help at all, Timothy?
So basically what you want to do is keeping your torso flat and straight, chest forward. You basically want to make a V with your body. So you can do this in a couple of different ways. You want to balance. You can hold the backs of your knees if you want. Or hands out. Or you can put your hands behind. So from here, if you want to make it a little bit more difficult, while you're balancing, starting with your left foot, we're just going to tap our toes to the ground, one at a time.
Leg lifts. You shouldn't have to.
You can do 4 on each side. And now staying forward, we're going to work our obliques. So from here, take your hands, scoop them to the right and hold. Trying to keep your shins parallel to the ground as much as possible. And knees together. And to the left. Come back to forward. Do you feel your abs? Is it working? I feel it a lot in my hips. That's I need to strengthen my hips more. So that's always a really good one. Obviously holding that as long as possible, doing more taps. Every time my yoga instructor talks about tapping the feet, I'm like, oh, I got this. And then I'm like, I hate you. I don't know what it is about those damn taps. Any questions? Okay, up we go. Okay, another really good stretch that I like to do at the beginning and at the end. I have a lot, I won't say a lot of problems, but I definitely feel my IT band a lot. Your IT band comes all the way from your hip down the outside of your leg and connects at your ankle. So that's just something we don't get a lot of stretch from. And a lot of the yoga practices that we're going to do, or if you do a lot of squats, which I know you guys have been working on, that can probably be kind of tight. So this will be a really good exercise to open that up. That will also help a lot with movement. So we can do this a couple of different ways, but I'm going to show you my favorite way to do it because it also incorporates a shoulder stretch. So take your hands up and then down to clasp behind your back. What you want to do is you want to clasp your hands as tight as possible and keep your hands together as much as possible. So this is okay, this is better. So you should be feeling a good opening across the front of your chest, standing up nice and tall, abs engaged. You're going to kind of bend or pop forward your right knee. And you want to take your right shoulder to your right knee while letting your hands lift up above your head. You're not in competition with anyone else. You're going as far as you can go tonight. Come back up. And this time you want to take your left shoulder to your right knee. So this is also going to incorporate a little bit of a twist in your back. Back up. We do it on the other side. So bend your left knee and left shoulder to left knee. So you probably notice that you're feeling it on the outside of your right hip, down the outside of your leg. That's where you should be feeling a stretch. So you can come back up and right shoulder to left knee. Stop and think. Come back up. Another really good way to stretch that same muscle is just to cross your legs and bend forward. You'll get the same stretch. I just like adding the arms to it as well because it's a good stretch for your shoulders. Questions? All right. So we're going to do a couple of standing poses or a couple of lunge type poses, then we'll do some standing poses for balance, which I know is the big thing about what we're here for. So we are going to start, let's start with down dog. Sorry, you're not supposed to laugh. Down dog is considered a resting posture in yoga. You're probably really familiar with child's pose, which is the ultimate resting position, but down dog when you're doing a vinyasa flow is also resting. It's a really good stretch because it opens up, it strengthens your arms, your shoulders, your back, strengthens your legs, really good for your abs as well. So we're going to use that as our base and do a couple of strengthening exercises for our legs before we move into the lunges. So there's a couple of ways to get into down dog. In order to get the good posture, if you go from your hands and knees, making sure your palms are splayed as much as possible because that's where you're going to get strength. You're just going to tuck your toes and shoot your hips back. It's okay if your heels don't touch. If they do touch and you want to take a little bit of a wider stance, you can. You want to focus your energy up through your tailbone. So you really want to be pushing out of your hands back into your legs. Make sure that you're not putting pressure on your shoulders. You're pushing out of your shoulders. You don't want to be resting or putting all that stress in your shoulders. From here, if you need to bend each knee, kind of get a little bit of a stretch going, you can do that as well.
How do you keep it out of your shoulders?
Yeah, you keep it out of your shoulders.
How?
You have to push out the back. Press from your palms out.
So it's not the fingers, it's palms.
Yeah, press out of your palms. You really should not have any weight in your fingers.
That's the difference between fingers and palms.
Your gaze should be between your ankles, and making sure that you can move your head back and forth, not holding a lot of stress in your neck. So if you want to come down to your knees really quickly, I'm going to show you a good exercise from down dog that is a really good strengthening exercise. Basically, from down dog, you're just going to bend your knees and tap them to the mat and back up. So this is what it looks like. You don't really want to tap, you want to come down close and raise back up. The longer you can hold your knees hovering above the ground, you're strengthening your quads as well as your glutes and hamstrings. So it's a really good stretch and strengthening exercise for your legs. And that's just something you can kind of do a few repetitions. It's also really good to keep your abs engaged.
Rotator?
How did I know?
Alright. How's everyone feeling? I'm
only
being
getting one
attacked by
pop, it's
bugs.
good.
So.
I'm only getting one pop, it's a good day.
Okay. So now we're going to do crescent, which is going to be really good for strengthening again your lower body. It's also really good to open up your hip flexors. So we'll do it obviously on both sides. So if it's easier, maybe I'll show you the pose and then walk you through into getting into it. Basically, both of your feet are going to be facing the same direction. I'll show you the beginner pose first and then the intermediate. So for beginners, you're going to be down on your knee, knee tracking over your ankle. Arms up. If you're feeling stronger, you can come up on your back knee or your back toe. When you're in the pose, you want to try to keep your back leg as straight as possible. A lot of energy coming up through your hamstrings. Try not to bend your knee. You want a good, strong back leg, and you want to be as far deep into your bent leg as possible. Hips are tracking forward. You don't want to have them going around because then you get off balance like I just did. So hips square, chest forward, arms up. And if your balance is good, looking forward or looking up to the sky. Awesome. You guys look great. You want to try the other side? So a lot about yoga, the movement is connected to the breath. I'm not really talking a lot about that right now. I am going to give you a couple of exercises at the end to do that will help in your fighting, especially if you're going from one round to the next. So if you want to try the other leg, same pose. Both of your toes facing forward, hips squared. Try to keep your back leg as straight as possible. A lot of energy coming up through your knee and calf and hamstring. Very good. pose now with an added element to it, which is going to be a good, it's good for your back. I'm trying to do a lot of twisting things for your back because I know that's how you guys move. That's how you're throwing shots. That's how you're moving your sword. There's a lot of side-to-side motion. So we're going to add in something to help with that range of motion. So from wherever you felt comfortable in crescent, whether it be with your knee on the ground or up, you want to take your lunge back again, arms up, down the heart center. You want to make sure you're lifted out of your hips. On your inhale, you're going to twist as far as you can, hooking your elbow to the outside. Let me get to the side. And that's where the balance comes in. Your gaze is above your elbow. You're really focused on the twist in your back, opening up as far as you can to whatever direction you're turning. If you need to be down on your back knee, that's perfectly fine. You also want to try to keep your hips square. Just because your back is turning does not mean your hips are turning. Okay, come back up. Let's try the other side. And because I'm a dork, I just realized I can face this way and show you the other side. It's amazing how that works, isn't it? So down, arms up, to heart center, and I still went for a line. And on your exhale, you want to twist. Doing as close as you can to hook your elbow to the outside of your knee. Come back forward. Arms up. How are we doing? Check it in. You're quiet. You're quiet. So now we're going to do Warrior 2, which is a similar position. Let's start with our left foot forward. The left foot is going to be facing straight ahead or the top of your mat. Your back foot, however, is going to be at a 90-degree angle to that. And the way you want to line it up is if the arch of your back foot should line up with the heel of your front foot. So when you step back, and again into your good lunge, your hips or your body, however, is facing the side, I guess. I'm saying facing front, but and arms straight forward. And you want to look out over your front hand. You want to make sure that you're trying to keep the front of your body as flat as possible. And on the count of 3, we're all going to sink in just a little bit deeper into our front knee. 1, 2, 3. How are you feeling? No, you don't want your knee going past your ankle. You want to make sure that you're in good alignment. So when you're bending, you're dropping from your thigh bone. Ultimately, you want your thigh bone is parallel to the ground. Keeping your body open to the side. From here, on your next exhale, and this is where the balance comes into play, you're going to flip your front palm open to the sky and back. While you're here, make sure you're not losing any of the depth in your front knee if possible, and keeping your abs strong. Really good. Okay, come back forward and up. We ready for the other side? One of the best descriptions I've ever heard of Warrior 2 was from a teacher I took from when I lived in Texas. And her description of this pose was that you are open but protected. And I always love that description. And I think that it really speaks a lot to fighting. Because you need to be open to take shots, you need to be open to move, but you also still need to make sure that you're protecting yourself. So arms straight out to the side. You're going to bend into your front leg. Looking out over your forefingers. And trying to stay open as much as possible to your side. On the count of 3, try to take it just a little bit deeper into that front knee. 1, 2, 3. Try not to lean forward. You're not tracking forward. You want to make sure your torso is straight up and down.
That's just about.
Now on the count of 3, actually go ahead and flip your front palm forward. On the count of 3, reverse. 1, 2, 3. Try to feel a really good stretch through your side body on your right side. This is going to open up your obliques and give you a lot more range of motion when it comes to throwing your shots. Come back forward and lift. Check out your legs. Is everyone okay? I get nervous when you're quiet. Okay.
Trust me, we're working muscles we've never worked before.
Okay, so we're going to do one more standing pose before moving into some balance work. This is Tamiki's favorite chair.
Yeah.
I think Tamiki should demonstrate.
Oh no.
All right, so I'm going to face you just so you can see what's going on. You can do this a couple of different ways depending on however you feel comfortable. You can have your feet about hip width distance apart. You just want to make sure that whenever you're in the pose that your knees are tracking out over your hips. You don't want them tracking in and you don't want them tracking out. You want to make sure they're just tracking straight forward. You also don't want your knees too far over your toes. You can also do this with your feet together, or at least your big toes together and your heels slightly apart, which is my personal preference, but do whatever feels best for you and your body. The important thing about this pose is you are not bending forward into your knees. You're not dropping your weight forward. You are sitting back into your heels. All of your weight should be in your heels. When you're in this pose, you should be able to lift all 10 toes up off the ground. So all of your weight needs to be focused backwards. It's like you're sitting in a chair and there's just nothing there to catch you. So, on the count of 3, we're going to breathe in, arms up, arms by your ears, and sit back. You can keep your arms out forward or bring them into heart center. You want to make sure you're keeping your torso straight and your heart is open and forward. You're not hunching forward. You want to be open. And up. And one more time, we're going to add a twist this time. So it's the same thing that we did with crescent. We're going to have our arms in heart, or our hands in heart center, and on our exhale, we're going to twist to one side. So we'll start by twisting to our right, since that's where apparently I want to go. So breathing in, and exhale. Hands to heart center. Take a deep breath here, and on your exhale, twist. Again, you want your gaze up over your elbow. And when you're looking up, you want to make sure that your feet have equal pressure on them. You don't want to be lifting one hip. Everything from your lower body is equal. Hips forward and square. All of your energy equally distributed. Come back to center and up. Want to do some squats, Tamiki?
We're going to do some. We're going to have a squat challenge.
And one more time, we're going to go to the other side. Breathe in. Exhale down. Hands to heart center. Take a deep breath here. And twist on the exhale. back to center. And up. All right. Now we're going to do some balance work, which is, I know what you guys are doing. So from the chair pose, we're going to do another one, which I know is something similar to what Helgi's been working on. And this is really good for balance. So pick a leg. I'm going to start with my right. So you want to really ground through your left foot. If you practice barefoot, it's good to raise your toes and then lay them all back down so that you're actually gripping the ground with all four corners of your foot. You're going to take your other foot and on uneven ground, hook it above your knee and sit back into chair.
Nope, I'm good.
So, what is this called?
One-legged chair.
One-legged chair. It's called No to Mickey Motion.
I'm just with your friends.
Oh yeah, you can do it with your friends. You can start a kick line. Excellent. Come back up. You should be feeling really good strength building in your standing leg and also a really good stretch in your bent leg. One really quick thing about balance that I should have talked about before. A couple of things are going to help you keep your balance easier. First of all, core strong. You always want to make sure your core is strong. The second thing is your gaze. Wherever your gaze is where your energy is going. So in yoga, that's why we look in different places because it changes the focus of where our energy is going. So when you're trying to balance, it's good to pick an object on the ground or a specific spot on the ground. Focus your energy there so that when you're doing things and moving into poses, it calms your mind and gives your mind something to focus on, and it will make your balance a lot easier. So let's try the other side.
I'm going to focus on how to...
So making sure your right leg is grounded. And actually where the ankle should be on the outside of the leg, we'll get to tree in a second. And once you've found your balance, sit into chair. You want to make sure that you're not putting pressure on your kneecap. So you either want to be above it or slightly below it. Above it if possible. Breathing. You are. And on the next exhale, lift up. So I like that pose because again, it's balance and it's stretching. And again, I like things that do multiple actions at once. That makes me happy. I like efficiency because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to work more than I have to. So, on a similar vein, we're going to do tree, which a lot of you, it looks like you know. So there are a couple of variations. You can do tree from here, where you're basically just resting your heel on your ankle. So this is kind of like kickstand tree, which is perfectly acceptable. It's a really good way to get your balance started. You can also go to the inside of your calf or to the inside of your thigh. You never want to be on your knee. This is a no-no. So you're either below your knee or you're above it. So whichever variation you want. And during this pose, we're going to work on our gaze because when you move your gaze in balance is when you start screwing yourself up. So it's something important to work on. So whenever you're ready, you want to lift your arms and be a strong tree. Another thing that's going to help your balance is making sure that you're pulling up out of your hip on your standing leg. You don't want to be sinking into it. You want everything to be nice and firm and strong. Strong abs, chest forward and up. You can bend it a little if you need to, but you want it as straight as possible. So from here, we're going to bring our arms out to the side. And from wherever you're looking now, I want you to look out and gaze over your left hand. Come back to center. And now out over your other hand. back to center. You're going to bring your arms up, back down through heart center. Bring your foot forward without letting it touch the ground if possible. And now we're going to go into standing splits. So your leg's going to pop back and your hands down. You want to make, from here, you're looking at your kneecap. And if you want to challenge your balance even further, you can move one or both hands to your ankle. Use your glute to try to lift that leg that's in the air just a little bit higher. And bring it back down beside your other leg, your standing leg. So that's standing split.
Back foot pointed?
It's usually flexed.
Okay.
Yeah, in yoga pretty much everything is flexed.
I'm a first timer.
You too. I have no idea.
Rookie.
You guys are doing great.
Yeah, yoga pants. Use my fighting pants.
Are we ready for the other leg? All right, and since I showed you standing splits, technically we would have done that on this side too, but I got a good idea, so we're also going to do Warrior 3 from this side, so you have two different exercises that are similar. So again, take your bent leg to wherever you want it to be, and once you have found your balance, arms reach to the sky. From here, if you want to challenge your balance, you can turn your gaze up. Bring your gaze back to center. Arms out to the side. And take your gaze out over your right hand. Back to center. And if you drop the pose, just get right back in and out over your left hand. Back to center. You guys are doing really, really well. Okay, so from here, arms up to heart center. Bent leg forward. And now we're going to go into Warrior 3, which we're going to sweep that leg back, but try to make a T with our bodies. So your torso should be, I'm sorry? A Y is perfect. Y is my favorite vowel.
How did I wind up with a Q?
You can keep your hands in at heart center, or they can go out forward in front of your head, out by your ears. So kind of the Superman pose. Good job. And whenever you're ready, bring your legs back down standing. All right, we have one more to do, and then I'll show crow if you want. Eagle, again, I'm going to do eagle, which is another really good standing pose. It's again one of those really efficient poses because you are going to be stretching one side of your leg while strengthening the other, and also you're going to get a good arm and shoulder and tricep stretch. So we're actually going to start with our arms. The basic arms, I want you to put your right arm underneath of your left, and you want to touch your shoulders. So this is the basics. If you want to take it a little bit further, you can move your hands up and clasp them. So you should be feeling a really good stretch across the upper back. You can also move up and down to get the stretch that you need. So these are our arms. Since our right arm is on the bottom, our right leg is going to be on top. So we're going to take our right leg, we're going to cross it over our left. If you can, hook your foot back behind your calf. I'm not very good at that. And then you're going to sit back and chill. Excellent, eagle. Try to cross this way if you can. Yeah. or don't want to. As long as your thighs are crossed, that's the important part. All right, it looks like everybody's finished with that side. You ready to do the other? So you're going to do your arms in the opposite direction. So this time your left is on the bottom. You will probably find that one cross is going to be easier than the other. And so then your left leg is going to be on top. You want to squeeze your thighs together. That's going to help you with your balance. And then sit back into chair. Try to keep your arms forward and have them clasped. I was moving them out of the way so you could hear me. You want them in front of your face. You guys are awesome. All right, and whenever you're ready, stand up. Good job. How are you feeling?
Sweaty. Good, sweaty. Good.
We are at about 45 minutes, which is about where I was going to be. Are there any body or muscle groups that you feel are sore that you want me to do something for really quickly, or?
Speak up. Don't be shy.
Question on some of the balancing ones. I noticed that I have high arches or high insteps, so I'm getting a lot of pain in the up this area. Is that going to change?
Yes, as your foot gets stronger. Right. Another thing, I'm just going to show you guys really quickly because this will help just in your general life too. For that issue to stretch this, sitting and trying to go back a little bit on your, while you're just in a bit like posture is going to help with that.
Okay.
Or if you're standing, just try to stretch.
All right.
Just do just a little stretch.
Perfect.
It's good. Another one, because a lot of us spend so much time on keyboards, if you have wrist issues and need to stretch out your wrist, 2 really quick things you can do. I usually do them from a seated position. If you put your arms out forward and you lay them out and then lean back. That's stretching this side of your wrist, which is really good. On the flip side of that,
the computer geeks me.
if you just flip your hands upside down to where the front of your wrists are facing forward and do the same thing. That's going to stretch this top section. If you spend any time at computers, keyboards, mouse, like using a mouse, our cell phones, all of that, this is a huge, huge exercise. This will help you avoid carpal tunnel. Also, if you can do it 2 ways. You can do it with your elbow, the inside of your elbows facing forward, or to the sides, and you'll get different stretches with it. I have a lot of trouble with my wrists, and I guess Helgi does too.
Lower here?
Lower right here.
To stretch.
Yeah. I have a lot of lower back issues.
Child's pose is a really good one. It's a really gentle one. So from your knees, knees slightly to the outside of your mat, heels in, and you're just going to be forward. That's going to be a really good gentle stretch on your low back. A better stretch is if you're laying on your back, just simply pull your knees into your chest and rock. This is actually a really good posture to do every night. I do it before I go to bed. As we get older, our spine kind of settles and gets compressed. So it's not as much blood and spinal fluid and all that fun stuff gets in between your vertebrae. So the more you open up your spine, the better. And it will help a lot with back problems.
What is the one that starts with downward dog and you pull your leg and like you're here?
Pigeon?
Pigeon, yeah.
Pigeon is a really good one for your hips. It's one of my favorites. Basically, from down dog, you're going to bring one of your legs forward, trying to get your shin as parallel to the top of your mat as possible. And then you're going to sit down as much into the mat as you can before hinging forward, so it looks something like this. And
oh, thanks there.
This is the technical
Yeah.
pigeon. And then whenever you lean forward,
Right. That really helps my sacrum, stretching that sacrum.
yeah, anytime you're moving forward, it's going to
Yeah.
help your low back. The other thing from the same position, I think we call this hood ornament. You can take your back leg and bend it.
That was pretty good.
And again, this is another really good one for balance. This also, again, is another one of those efficient postures because you're stretching your hip and you're stretching your quad on your other side and you're working your arms.
And how long should you strive to keep a pose or to move between them? Or is it?
As long as feels comfortable. If you're doing a restorative practice where you're trying to stretch and like open up your tendons and ligaments, you want to hold it as long as you can. Like especially something like pigeon, where you really need to sink into it. The other thing is every time you exhale, you should be releasing because we hold tension so much in our bodies that when you're in a pose like that, you really need to sink into it and let it work. If you can hold that pose for a couple of minutes, it's a good thing. But that's going to be more of a restorative practice. When I'm practicing for strength and a warming through my, getting my body warm, my practice is usually about an hour to cover everything. And that's from the beginning to the end, including Shavasana. Shavasana is also a very important posture. That's called corpse pose. And every yoga practice will end in corpse pose, which is basically lying flat on your back and you're relaxing and letting all of the good things that you just did to your body sink in. There are yoga practices out there where you spend about 15 minutes in Shavasana. I don't know that I could stay awake, but apparently those are supposed to be pretty good. Any other questions?
Yeah. All right,
So,
everybody get in armor.
just for the purpose of documentation, this is the sun salutation that you were saying would be nice to add.
And it's based, most yoga flows are based around this, but it's also a really good warm-up. So either before practice, before war, before a tourney, it's a really good, and I don't want to say easy, but a quick way to get you warmed up, limber, flexible, get your insides warm and your blood flowing. So, and it will hit every muscle group. So it's a really a good, efficient, effective way. And I'm going to go through it twice because once on each side.
Man.
All right, with that, did everybody notice? Everybody notice how out of balance they are, even when they're fighting, and they think they are in balance. You're not. You're not. So if you can start going smoothing through that to the transitional shots and staying balanced the whole time, you're going to pass it.
Well, all the balance is too. It's two different things. You got to balance all that force. It's good force on the fight.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was like, where's that? How can we do it? Okay. I won't be there. I really want to be there. I think